So with benevolent capitalism, most people don't understand what capitalism means, and I'm finding even those that think they understand what benevolent is have this really distorted view, or this strange view that benevolent is misidentified benevolent, or use it as a way of superiority. You know, you're poor, you're sick, let me fix that for you, because they have judgment that it's nasty, horrible, and is causing the ills of the world. And I was just interested in your point of view about each of those.
For me, the benevolent capitalism is the recognition that you can't do capitalism just from the point of view of what you personally can get out of it. You've got to do it from the point of view of how it contributes to you and everybody else. If you don't do it from that kind of place, you're not going to create a sustainable reality. And it's like it's like too much of what has been done here is the capitalism that's based on, I got to get my share of the and I don't care what anybody else does. And it's like the thing about benevolent capitalism, you have to realize that unless you function from benevolent capitalism and you function from the way in which you're going to create more in the world for everybody, not just you, that eventually you're going to use up the resources. You're not going to create a sustainable reality nor a sustainable planet. And by sustainable, I'm not talking it just survives. I'm talking about it actually grows and becomes something that's even greater.
Many people don't understand capitalism, refuse to understand capitalism, or they've misidentified it.
Well, the basic definition of capitalism is to create a profit. The purpose of what you do is to create a profit. You know, the thing is it's like there's 1,000 ways to make profit if you realize that 99% of the people out there who are trying to create a profit are doing it from a point of view that they have to create a profit by hurting somebody or by hurting the world. That's actually not what is actually necessary. So it's like there's this constant state of feeling that if they do something that's going to hurt the world, that will be capitalism. It's not. And benevolent is not about doing kindness to others. It's about doing no damage. If you did your whole life from doing no damage, would that be a greater form of benevolence than any other thing? And that's what you got to look for. You got to look for that place in which there's this sense that you are doing no damage, and that's what true benevolent capitalism is about, doing no damage and still making money.
The notion of sustainable future too, because too many people that function from purely I need and want more money, focusing on the short term to the exclusion of what actually could create sustainable future for them, for their clients, for their business, for the families, for the communities generally, for the world. And if you focus on the short-termism, then you're actually denying yourself the possibility of greater futures that you couldn't even imagine.
Exactly, and it's like you've got to look at the different futures that can be created. If we don't start functioning from benevolent capitalism, if we continue to function with using and abusing to get what we want, the end result is going to be a world that's not livable. I was watching television the other day and I saw this program about how the U.S. government had taken some area in Oklahoma that had belonged to the Indians. They used it during World War II. They started mining it in order to bring out the uranium. The end result was that they had a lot of toxic waste that they ended up leaving on the top of the land. After World War II, they give it back to the Indians. Today, because of the toxic waste that's there, like the plant life is dying, people are getting cancer and dying. There's no bird in the area. Because they took what they needed and then left it after the fact, the end result is a bizarre place in which a whole new reality gets created, and nobody knows how or why, but we've got to find a way to change that. And for me, you look at that, and it's like we've destroyed that section of the earth because of our need and our greed. And it's like benevolent capitalism is not doing it, not profit, but it is doing it knowing full well that you're going to have to take some responsibility for what you create and how you create.
So the real thing for people to consider is that capitalism is not mutually exclusive with benevolence, and benevolence does not mean that you can't be a capitalist.
Right, because the thing is that there's nothing wrong with capitalism and the willingness to make money and have money. There's nothing wrong with that. But what the big mistake I see people doing is they're always trying to create their business, and it's like the competition of, I got to get my market share and that kind of stuff. Well, what if your market share was the least amount you could get? What if something was greater that you haven't even considered? And that's the thing I'm always looking at is, okay, so what haven't you considered? It could create something greater than you've ever had before.
Is the reason why the capitalism is not being benevolent at the moment, is that because people tend to function from purpose rather than priority?
Yeah, if your priority is to make money and also create a sustainable universe, sustainable reality, a sustainable future, then you don't function from the purpose of just money. You look at how, okay, so what does this create if we do this, and what could also be created? See, the one thing that they did when they took that property in Oklahoma, the thing is, what if they had gone in there to do that and then looked at, have a plan for the waste? How do we use the waste? Where does the waste go? What can we do with it? So benevolent capitalism would be looking at what you call the waste product and how to incorporate that into something that was useful. It's like we need to look at everything we create and figure out how we can use the byproduct and the waste product of it. And one of the things I love about you, Steve, is you're always saying, so what other revenue streams are available here? And that's really the system of benevolent capitalism that needs to be done. Because it's like, what other things are possible that we haven't considered? And it's that place of always questioning. Okay, so we've got this product, what else is here that we haven't considered, or what else is possible that we don't know about?
Yeah, one of the things we're starting to find more and more now when we talk to businesses is if we raise the notion of question, choice, possibility and contribution, and then drill down and look to see what that actually means. So what does question actually mean? What does that look like? Why do we want question? What if that was your greatest strategic advantage, was that you were willing to be and ask questions that no one had even considered? What would that lead to in terms of an innovation environment? And then choice, what does choice actually mean? If you make a choice, then it's just a choice and can be changed when it needs to change. That's another word for being strategic. And what about contribution? So what impact does this have on all of the other people, the other communities, the other businesses? And possibility. What else is available? What else don't we know that we should know that if we did know? Just those four words alone, if you drill down, can totally create a different culture within the business just by extrapolating those four words: choice, possibility, question, contribution.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. I think it's quite amazing what is actually possible that we haven't even considered. It's like, what else is possible that we haven't considered? And that's the thing of question, choice, possibility. If you start to look at what might be possible that you haven't considered, it's like in that process, you start to look for everything and every possibility instead of just one point of view.
So what can people do individually in their own space? What can they do to be the benevolent capitalist, to create the curiosity around benevolent capitalism?
If your target was to create a world that was sustainable, a world that would continue to grow and continue to expand far beyond what it currently is, what would you do to be different? The thing is to go to the question, the choice, the possibility, and the contribution. If you start to look at what might be possible that you haven't considered, it's like in that process, you start to look for everything and every possibility instead of just one point of view.
Yeah. And then what if they started looking at all those questions and created, again, that culture of innovation, that culture of possibility, and made money that they couldn't have even dreamt of beforehand?
The thing is, the purpose of a question is not to get an answer. And so most people do capitalism from, I'm going to get the right answer and then I'm going to make the most money. And it's about really trying to maximize profits at all times. And it's like if you didn't maximize profits at all times, what other choice would you have available? And that's a whole different way of looking at life. And you got to be willing to see that place in which you function from this universe, which is about, look at the amount of money you can make. When do you want to make it? Now or later? So as an example, with antiques, for instance. Okay, I've watched people demand that they get top dollar for their antiques. Now, they're working hard to get the top dollar for their antiques. Do they actually get it? They don't.
Well, that interesting notion of would you rather have a bit of a bit or would you rather have 100% of nothing?
Exactly. And most people function from 100% of nothing is greater than and better than 10% of what they could have. And it's so interesting to me to watch people do that. One of the things I've noticed in the antique business is I've watched many times in the antique business when people they'd offer something for sale, and then after they'd had it for a year, it's like they still hadn't been able to sell it, then they would suddenly mark it down a lot and sell it off cheap. And why didn't they sell it the rest of the time? Because it wasn't placed in the market in the right way. And I used to do this thing of rearranging antique shops, and I could put something in a new location, like very different from where it had been, and suddenly it would become a valuable product, and somebody who'd been into the store 100 times in a year would see it in a new light and decide it was a new product. And that's how they sold stuff. So it's about getting people to see it as it is. It's like a valuable product becomes valuable based on what? It's how other people see it. What if you were willing to see what was really valuable and to choose that? And you've got to look from that point of view.
The conversation that people can have about this notion of benevolent capitalism, when they're talking to their colleagues, when they're talking at work, what advice or what insights do you have?
It's like you want to ask, what part of our business are we not maximizing the possibilities of, not the revenues of? But what is it that we're not looking at that can increase, give us another revenue source and increase our profit without having to discount or having to make ourselves choose something that lessens our image and our possibility in the world?
So maximizing the possibilities instead of maximizing revenue.
Yeah. And it's like when you start to function from that benevolent capitalism of actually increasing the possibilities of what can be created instead of just looking at how you can make more money. It's like yes, you will make more money, but it's like you start to look at, wait a minute, what haven't we noticed? What haven't we seen? What can we look at or do or be different? And that's the thing that's most amazing to me. It's like when Steve Jobs was running Apple, he would take something and they'd be developing it and he goes, this is not going anyplace, and he'd throw it out. Most people will not ever do that. Most people, once they start down the line, they have to keep it going because they've created it or invented it or whatever. And it's like that point of view is a killer of your business. And most people don't realize it.
They didn't want to waste the money that they spent already, so they just kept on pushing, kept on doing something that might not even work.
Wow, so what do we misidentify as waste?
Yeah, from my point of view, waste is when you are actually not recognizing what is possible.
So it's a waste of possibility. So one of the great changes that everyone can participate in the world right now is to start to really embrace the notion of benevolent capitalism and explore what that means in their own life and the conversations they have with the people around them.
Yep. You want to ask what's really possible that I've never considered. Want to create a better world? Try benevolent capitalism, the conscious way to create a business.